Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Welcome, dear friends. Good to see you all again. So we have some time this day for you to share with me what's happening in your sadhana or ask questions. I'll just remind those of you who are interested in asking a question that you need to go to the react button down at the bottom. And in there, you'll find a place that says raise your hand. And then you can, I can see that you are wanting to speak with me. So you're welcome to raise your hand and have a conversation with me. You're also welcome to just sit silently. Hello, Suresh. Please turn on your microphone.
Hello, wonderful to be with you.
Hello, hello.
So when we sit with you, there seems to be a dissolving of vasanas, happening, and there's relief and expansion, a sense of relief and expansion. So is sadhana essentially completely dissolving, any conditioning, and then the self shines without any blockage? And then I actually have a second piece to that. In Vedanta, they talk about Chidabhasa, which is reflected consciousness. As long as there's the body, is there always a sense of reflected consciousness, which means there is some experience of polaric opposites, pleasure, pain, heat,
Yes.
cold, etc. So those are the
Yes.
two questions.
Okay, well, I'll take the second one first, and then you might have to remind me about the first.
Okay.
The second one first is yes. This that we are experiencing right now is consciousness reflected through the mind, through the energy or the power of the mind. Consciousness itself, as you know, Suresh, has no qualities or characteristics that can be pointed to. In other words, we can't say that is consciousness, because consciousness itself can never be an object. Sometimes it's said in the tradition that consciousness is pure subjectivity, but that also is reflected through the mind. In other words, that sense that I am. This is a reflection. So anytime we are involved in perception, any kind of perceived phenomenon or object in the waking state, what we're observing is the reflection of consciousness in the mind, because consciousness has no characteristic whatsoever. So in order for us to see anything, it has to be reflected against the screen of aware mind. So yes, that's absolutely right. This is an important understanding to have in Advaita, because unless one has this understanding, the attention of the ego has a tendency to just move from object to object, often getting more and more subtle as it does so. But at some point, we have to understand that if there's any object present, there's any perception present, it is still a subtle object or a subtle separation into subject and object, or the reflected light of consciousness upon some object. So by knowing this, we can understand both that consciousness itself is not something that I, as a mind or as a person or as an ego, can see. So I needn't take the position that I am looking for consciousness, or I am wanting to be aware, or something like that. We simply understand that consciousness is, it is the foundation of all that is. One can say consciousness is in everything, but there is no thing in consciousness which is it. Everything that we see is the reflected light of consciousness in the mind. Okay? This is not to say it's good or bad. It's not to say it's positive or negative. It's just to say that when we perceive anything at all, we do so with pure consciousness, but through the reflective mechanism of the mind. And for that reason, it appears as duality, because the subjective has to have an object in order for it to see itself. There cannot be oneness separate from the objects which are there. Oneness is oneness. So this indicates to us that consciousness is both the totality and the specific. We see consciousness itself in everything that is, but in everything that there is, we don't see consciousness as an object. We see it as the reflected light of its own being. Okay, is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So now remind me, what was the first part?
So the first part is, the process of sadhana, which is the idea of dissolving conditioning or vasanas. But is there, and that itself is a delightful, process. But for example, when we wake up from the dream, there's no dream at all.
Yes.
Waking consciousness doesn't see the dream, or in deep sleep, there's no body or world or objects, including, any sense of bliss.
Correct.
So is there, and this dissolving process of sadhana itself is fulfilling in itself, but I'm just, Bhagavan would talk about there being no world at all, really, for the sage. So again, I don't know, my questions tend to get complicated, but in this process of dissolving vasanas, do you arrive at an awareness where there is no phenomena?
Yes, and for a more complete explanation of this, I would point you to the Ashtabakya Gita. There is a chapter in the Ashtabakya Gita which says, the title of the chapter is Let Everything Dissolve. And then the sage goes through all of the things that can be allowed to dissolve, ending with this me sense, or this I sense, which is the one that's engaged in the sadhana, the practice of sadhana.
Yeah.
And then the very next chapter, the heading is, there is nothing to dissolve. So the sage takes us right to this point that you're talking about, where we understand that during the process of what we refer to as sadhana, this is a process of dissolution. And so when we sit together in this way, we are sitting in support of this process, which is not a process, this path, which is not a path. And the consequence of that is that we feel the liberation of our nature as it already is, as we become more and more self-aware. Not self in the small sense or the I sense, but self in the larger sense, the self itself, which is already here as being consciousness. But we are very quickly from that position, which from asking this question in this subtle place that you're pointing at right now, allow that recognition that nothing needs to be dissolved, that nothing ever existed, that nothing ever happened. Allow that recognition, which is there in each and every one of you as the wisdom self. Allow that recognition to come forward so that there's not, it's interesting that you bring this up today, because I had this conversation with someone just a couple of days ago, and it was very easy for her to understand that what had happened was she had been for some period of time engaged in this process of dissolution and had become attached to this feeling of dissolution happening when she sat in presence or in silence. And so when the moment came for her to step into the recognition that there was no dissolution at all occurring, that nothing was ever happening, the only thing she needed to do was let go of the feeling of dissolution and simply be here now as this moment by moment by moment awareness. And so be sure that as you experience this dissolution that you speak of, that you're prepared to also let go of everything that appears to dissolve, so that what is here as being consciousness and bliss can reveal itself, because that's the place you cannot go any further with the mind as a separate entity. Only the letting go into what you already are as being consciousness and bliss will take you to the further shore. Okay, Diana, welcome. Turn your microphone on, please. Okay.
Namaste, Rishi. Namaste, all.
Namaste, dear.
Such a beautiful synchronicity happening with just talking about. And it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And I would like to share what came just during the shower before. It was really, if by Arunachala, Ramana's grace, the revealing is given that nothing ever happened. Deepliest arrived in the heart. Then it just came this morning, that this means really, as you said, there's only this moment, and this moment doesn't belong to anyone, to nobody. because there's nothing there. Yeah, there's no me, no you, nothing is there. And it doesn't belong to anything, anybody or anything. It just appears for a blink of an eye, and then it's gone already. Then it passed already. And this gives this freedom of what was missing, in the talk was missing this freedom of not being bound to anything. I can say like this.
Yes.
Yes, it's just this tiny little moment appearing, and then a blink an eye is gone, and it has no consequence for nothing, for nobody, and for nothing, truly. It has not the smallest consequence. It was this tremendous belief, that it belonged to me, and all the conditioning and everything, what you said, and it. Yes, I'm so grateful because yesterday it wasn't really clear, but it needed a little anything. I don't know what I needed a little nothing.
Yes. So one of the things I'd like to point out here to everyone is that this process of dissolution, which is where we began, this goes on for a very, very long time. And it keeps going on in more and more subtle ways. And this is one of the ways that Diana's pointing out here, is that we can have very, very profound insights and understandings. And we do continue to have them. There's not like a moment where there's a big bang. This does happen for some, but for most people, it's a gradual process. It's a moving more and more and more into these subtle awarenesses where there are deeper insights which come and release greater freedom and release greater joy. Thank you for sharing.
Right. Thank you.
For those of you who may be a little bit newer to Advaita, I do want to clarify also and be sure that you understand that because you seem to still be having these experiences of meanness or of personality or of some belief in separation in the world, with the world, in your experiences, in your perception, in this field of duality that we talk about in Advaita, this is not an indicator that you have missed something. Coming into the fuller understanding of nothing ever happened, to come into that understanding is not to point to the stopping, if you will, of experience or the isolation away from life itself that sometimes is associated with Advaita Vedanta. It's actually a fuller embrace of whatever is here, knowing that it is here temporarily. So even though I often use, and many people use, terms like the real and the unreal, and we say that there is consciousness itself, awareness itself is the real, and everything else that rises in perception in the subject-object relationship is the unreal. does not negate the life that you have. The life that you have is the gift that creation, God, Spirit, the Supreme, the Self, whatever you want to call it, is putting before you so that you can see the very places that dissolution is not happening. Not dissolution of you as a body mind, but dissolution of you as a personality, as an I sense. The I sense, Sri Bhagavan said, is always going to be there. It's going to be there even as this, just as the sense I, as though it was your heartbeat. And everything else can fall away. But the recognition of one's self-existence is the foundational I, from which everything else has dissolved, leaving us in the recognition of the self as knowing, being, consciousness, and bliss. This means that even when you know that nothing has ever happened, that nothing is ever happening, the appearance may still well be there, will still be there, that something is happening. The measure of your freedom and liberation is not about whether objects are rising, staying for a period of time and falling, but rather the level of attachment you have to those objects. If the you dissolves completely, the objects may well still come and go. This is parabdha karma. As long as you're in the body, that which brought you here as a set of conditions or as a sadhana, a set of vasanas, may still be working some things out. What does that have to do with you? You see, nothing. You are being, consciousness, and bliss. This is your true nature. The mind does not have to agree with this. The mind not agreeing with your nature as being, consciousness, and bliss. These are the vasanas. This is the way the vasanas, the conditioning shows up. Shows up as resistance, lack of agreement, complaint, judgment of self and others. These are the vasanas. They are nothing. If we come back to the foundational truth that nothing has ever happened, nothing is ever happening, nothing ever will happen, we very rapidly come into the recognition that what is rising and falling is completely empty. It's completely empty of any nature on its own. It's completely empty of any identification with this body and mind. It simply is the spontaneous manifestation of what is. And in this recognition, in this observation, in this witnessing, in this stillness, which sees what comes and goes, there is freedom and liberation from identification with personality, mind, body, and world. And there is the liberation of personality, mind, body, and world by the prior condition or the prior state of liberated freedom as being, consciousness, and bliss. The dance goes on, but there is nobody here. Now, only love, compassion, freedom are dancing, not me. So, you remain alert and attentive to everything, not in the way of attachment, not even in the way of mindfulness, I can say, but if you just remain alert in the here and now, presence, right now, everything is liberated in the recognition of yourself as that which is aware. Everything is liberated, freed, set free in the recognition of awareness itself. So please continue until you know this to be true for you. If you are sitting here now, you've already come well along the way. So just continue. So when I say, please continue, what do I mean? I don't actually mean continue with the practice or continue with some formal sadhana. What I may mean when I say continue is I mean continue to remain alert, remain as presence, remain here and now. Cling to nothing. Let the dance continue. Let what is be here. You are that. Before all thoughts of I am this or that, recognize I am. Stay there. Don't at all be disturbed by what is coming and going. This is the true meaning of nothing ever happened. When you are completely undisturbed, even if it's only momentarily, by something which is on the screen of awareness, you are free. You have just liberated that vasana. Everything that comes and goes has a basic equality about it. This whole notion of duality, which we talk about in Advaita, which means non-duality. To even talk about non-duality, we have to talk about duality. That in and of itself is a duality, isn't it? So when we say nothing is ever happening, we have to let all of these concepts be. We have to let them be in their own self, let them liberate themselves. It is our recognition, this recognition in this moment, that there is only being, consciousness, which liberates and frees. Not into something which we are not, but into that which we are, as presence and silence in the heart. Remain as that. Let what comes come, and let what goes go. You are free. I encourage you to keep bringing your doubts forward, both into your own field of observation and here into satsang. When we bring our doubts forward, they can dissolve, often just by our speaking about the doubts we have or the uncertainties we have. They dissolve, even without someone, myself, making comments about them. So don't hesitate. Often people come into satsang and they have some burning question for themselves, but they feel this recognition that Suresh was talking about of coming into satsang and everything dissolving. And then they notice that half an hour after satsang or an hour after satsang, that thing which was burning for them and which they wanted to bring forward, they had completely forgotten about, but now it has risen again. And there's a feeling of having missed the opportunity. But of course, that's not what's happening, is it? It's just to show us that we are already free, and also to show us that we have a little bit more work to do, because the state of freedom, if you will, that we experience in satsang remains only during in that period of time, or for a period of time afterwards. But then the conditioning, the vasanas and so on come again. So I encourage you, please come forward. Anil, hello, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello.
Namaste. I
Namaste.
I saw you in Diru about a month and a half ago. I went to a few satsangs in that beautiful park. So you probably don't remember, but of course I remember you. So many people there. So thank you for what you've just said, because that often happens to me, where I feel myself melting into the moment, and the problems that I had at the beginning of a satsang, that my doubts, they kind of disappear, and then like half an hour after the satsang, they come. What you just described happens to me a lot. So thank you so much. As soon as you started saying that, I put my hand up. My question is this, very simply, that connected to this, what I've just said, but I can be practicing really well and feeling very at one with my life. But then when I have a dispute with somebody very close to me, and there's a fear of a breakup of a relationship or of loss, this brings me a lot of suffering, and with this suffering, I try to practice with, what is suffering or who is suffering, but I find it very difficult to let go. I find it very difficult to find equanimity with this. It's a huge struggle inside me, and I wondered if you could shed some more light on how to deal with this suffering of loss or breakup, how to deal with this.
So what is the fear, Anil? What is the fear that brings up this suffering, this fear of loss? What is the fear, really? What is the worst that can happen?
Well, for example, that a breakup of a relationship with a loved one.
So is there some way to reframe that fear into the recognition that what's really happening is the frustration of the desire to love?
Yeah, I can see that.
Can you? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we experience this sense of loss or this fear of loss, if we remind ourselves that we're not just afraid that they will stop loving us, we are also deeply afraid that we will lose the ability to love someone or some situation or something like that, that we are really resisting the feeling within ourselves that in this moment, I am not loving. And this is our greatest desire, is to feel and to give and to express love. So when that feels frustrated in us, these great fears come up. But if we know that it's not about the loss of love for me personally, but about the loss of the ability to love for a person or a situation, we actually become quite quiet. Because we return to this foundation of love, and rather than being defensive and protective, we feel the heart open in the desire to love and embrace the situation unconditionally, not from a defensive position. In order to do this, we often have to let go of a lot of the stories we have about who we are, what we want, what we're trying to protect, what we think we can get out of the situation, our fear of the conflict. All of these positions, you can say, or points of view that are related to the conflict simply have to fall away. They have to. Because we recognize that what wants to manifest here is the desire to love unconditionally, to support and hold every situation with an open heart and with the recognition that being consciousness contains within it the presence of all situations. There is nothing to fear. That if we open our heart and open our mind to the possibility of love which just wants to love, then we can love through the circumstances, as difficult as they may be.
Thank you. I hadn't seen it from that point of view before, but it resonates very strongly with me. My suffering is that feeling frustrated and not feeling that my capacity for love can manifest, or feeling that it's blocked in some way.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm getting confused with things that I have no say over, no control over. But this
Control over. Exactly right.
is,
So what do you have control over in you? Truly, what do you have control over?
yeah. The only thing I can really think of what I have control over is where I put my awareness.
Yes, exactly right. That's exactly right. You have no control over another. You have absolutely no control over your vasanas. Yeah, I wish everyone could really understand that. I'm not giving you permission to explore your vasanas. Okay? But I am saying to you, your vasanas are not there to harm you. Your conditioning is not there to harm you. It's there to show you, to teach you where you are closed, where mind veils heart. So when you recognize that your ability to love is being frustrated, and recognize that the control over that does not lie in another, it does not lie in a situation, it doesn't lie in moving the furniture around the room in order to change the energy. It lies in making the decision to open the heart more. That's what you have control over. Once that's recognized, you might take a few bumps, you might get some bruises, but before long, you'll realize a capacity to love that you didn't know you had. To accept, to receive, and to love through very difficult circumstances and situations and with difficult people. And sometimes that love manifests as a solution, you can say, to a problem or to a relationship. And sometimes it just manifests as a silence and an inner knowing that one is holding this situation with an open heart, not with judgment, complaining, misunderstanding, defensiveness, and fear. Just opening. Your capacity to love is not your capacity to love. It's the infinite capacity for being, consciousness, and bliss. Step into it. That's the choice you have. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Namaskaram.
Kalambat. Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
I just wanted to thank you because you just answered a really burning question for me, naturally. So I have another quick one. Do you know Sadguru and what do you think about him? Because I had followed
I
his.
don't.
You do?
So what do you think about him is more important. It's not important what I think about him. I don't think about anything. I don't think about myself or anyone else. I just think about you and your freedom. This is all I care about. I'm not interested in anything else. So you follow your heart. It's led you here, it's led you to him. But I will say, if you want to know who you are, best to take your attention off of me and off of him and off of other and ask this question, who am I? The answer to your question lies in your own heart, not in the answers another can give you, though they can be helpful. So follow your heart.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, very good, very good. Lalita, where did you go? Suddenly you shifted.
I'm here. Namaste, Rishiji.
Namaste, dear.
So good to see you again and hear your answers to questions we all have. And I heard about attachment. You said about attachment, and I'd like to speak about my attachment. Now it is to Diru, to Arunachala, to the bliss and the experiences, spiritual highs I had there. You know.
Yes.
So,
yes.
and there was this time of longing to go back to that, and I couldn't do that, and I was waiting and expecting. I wanted to get that, again. And then I went there for just 1 week, with my family, and it was different. I mean, I didn't get those experiences I was longing for, but I was attached to so much. I was, craving for those highs again, to have that. And that's another big lesson.
Yes,
Probably.
indeed. This is a very big lesson, yes.
Yes. So is that, I don't even know is there a question to me about that? I just want to hear your take on that, experience. Like, no, the question could be like, was that all meant for me to see, that it's not about the place, or it's not about this energy moving and expanding and the joys and the revelations, and I don't know, or it's just another step, like to go beyond that, another object of attachment, and
Yeah.
like just to stop looking it somewhere else outside.
So before you start, yes, that's exactly where I was just going to go. And so you're already going there. When we settle, if you will, into being consciousness, it's necessary for the objects in which we have invested our spiritual search or seeking to, on an external level, whether it's teachers or mountains or, one path or another, energetics, deep meditative states, of samadhi states, and this, there is a moment which you describe where there's a recognition that these things which we used to use in a way of speaking to get high, they just don't do it anymore, or there's just no response to them. This is a clear calling to understand what it was that was calling us. The question rises very naturally in some way. What was I drawn to? Was I drawn to a mountain? Was I drawn to a practice? Was I drawn to a guru? What was I drawn to? If we look very deeply and we sit quietly, sometimes even in the process of grieving, because we've lost the things that used to get us high, the sensations, the mental states, the open heart states, those kinds of things.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because we feel like we've lost that.
Yes.
This very naturally can come up, and you can ask as you are now, have I lost it? Why have I lost this? Have I done something wrong? Have I stepped off of the path? No. You can ask yourself, however, was this sense of love, compassion, freedom, however you describe it, was it out there? Was it in this object, in that path, in this ceremony, in this mantra, or was it here? You see, when we go on our long journey of seeking, it is our habit before then to seek pleasure, to seek love, to seek comfort outside ourselves, in a circumstance, in a person, in a place. That's our way. So when we turn to spiritual seeking, we have the tendency to carry that over, that same habit. So we feel this presence while in a place, while with a teacher, while engaging in a spiritual practice, while engaging in spiritual ceremony, arti, festivals, things like that, while engaging in deep retreat of silence, if that's your way. But ultimately, all those supports have to fall away so that we can begin to see that we are not looking for love. We are love. We're not looking for compassion. We are compassion. We're not looking for freedom. We are freedom. And this becomes very evident, especially if we are, as I have been in the past and some people are now, especially if we are cast away from the object of our desire, like to be in Tiruvannamalai, to be at Arunachala, to be at Ramana Ashram, to have these experiences. When we suddenly find ourselves cast away into this period of dryness and we don't know what's happened, it's time for us to ask ourselves, it's time for you to ask yourself, where does this feeling of love, of joy, of compassion, of acceptance, of understanding, of knowing, where does it really lie? And this gives us the possibility of blooming where we are. This is a gardening term that I used to use all the time with people. But we have the opportunity to realize that where we are in our life, where we're living, where we're able to stay and where we can't stay, all of these things, we have to come to this recognition that being consciousness is here now, within our heart space. And before, it still appeared as this person, as this mountain, as this practice, and so on. So saying that, I can say that I have the deepest love and compassion for my teachers, for my path, for the way I have come to know who I am, for living in Tiruvannamalai, for having had this opportunity in this lifetime. But I also know that all of those attractants, all those experiences that appeared so attractive, their foundation lies here. I am the same everywhere I go. The same, not I as a person, that which is aware through this body-mind is the same under every circumstance, everywhere it goes, in every relationship, in every disagreement, in every expression of love and joy and compassion. This comes from here, from the heart of being, not from the objects or the interaction with the objects. So I just say to you, that was a long answer, but I'm saying to you, be still. Be still. The Bible says, be still and know that I am God. This is not an egoic position. This is a pointer. When you enter this period of time where the supports that you have used in the past in order to keep your attention focused on yourself as being, consciousness, or divine being, you could say, when that time becomes very dry and the objects move away and you can no longer touch them and you can no longer get high from them, now you have to find this space within your own being, which is the origin of your joy and your love and your compassion, which was there all along, but was only seen in the presence of the objects. Now the objects are gone, but you have to ask yourself, is the joy still here? Where is it? Is the love still here? Where is it? Is this expression of self-aware being, consciousness, and bliss gone? No? Where is it? Now find it here. This is the path now, you can say.
Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. No doubt.
My heart is opening here now.
Yes, there is a time in our recognition of self and in our sadhana where we simply have to remain open wherever we are, with whomever we are with, experiencing whatever we are experiencing, because we trust and we know that what is being brought forward in the current circumstances, in the here and now, this is the next step. So we stop resisting. You know, we just move into a place of allowing and observing and being present as that which is aware and not taking it personally. Then we come to see the manifested consciousness that is awareness. Awareness as this being, awareness as that being, awareness as all experiences, awareness as the totality. You are that. So,
Thank you.
new phase in sadhana. And don't hesitate to come back to Tiruvannamalai if you have the opportunity. Because those of us who have our hearts and our feet sometimes, but especially our hearts, deeply attached to Arunachala, or to Tiruvannamalai, or to Ramana, or to Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar, whatever. These are foundational places for us in this lifetime. So yes, we can go live somewhere else. We can live an ordinary life. We can continue doing whatever we are doing. We can be working. We can be a parent. We can do all of the things that we ordinarily do. But we have already recognized that that Arunachala, for instance, as our place or being, truly lives within us. And we're very fortunate because we can see it both within us and outside of us.
Yeah.
So we have the opportunity to come from time to time. And I know you don't live so far away. You are within India, so you can come and feel this devotion and this grace. But now the time for you is to find it within yourself at every moment of awareness, so that you free yourself from thinking that you somehow need to be one place or another in order to realize the self. You are the self at all times, all of you, in all places, under all conditions. There is not another self. There is only the self. That which you feel when you feel deeply, I am. Which you know now in this moment, I am. When you feel this, and you know this deeply, that you exist, that is the moment of sadhana. It's not dependent upon place, time, person, or situation.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. It's so important that you share, all of you, that when we have the opportunity that you share what you're experiencing and what you are, how you are witnessing. It's so important because, as we've already heard today, sometimes your sharing and our sharing together answers a question for someone that either they knew they have and didn't want to ask or didn't know if they should ask, or it answers a question which they didn't realize they had, but it was burning inside them and it comes to the surface. So this is the significance of satsang and of sharing with one another and being here as a vehicle for one another, and to take the risk to speak what is present for you at this moment, so that not only can you resolve, if you need to, some question you have, but that you can help to resolve the question that someone else might have. Hello, Matthew. Turn your, yeah, there you go.
Hello, can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just your encouragement to come forward, push me to be here talking to you now, no? So thank you. I guess what I'd like to look into is this that you say of having basically no preferences, no, for happenings, to be so equanimous. I guess we could use that. I mean, I guess experientially, it's often still not the case here. You know, like it feels like I can still. I guess these are the vasanas and conditionings, no, but that it feels like some things I would want to happen as if they do have certain value, and they can be both, I guess, worldly sometimes or more spiritual, no? And in the sense of maybe things we've heard or I've heard or listened to or whatever, that then kind of aims in the mind that to get to someday, if I was to also do enough sadhana or sit more or all these things, no? And it feels good to bring forward and see what comes of this conversation.
Yes. One of the very best ways that we can help ourselves is to be willing to end this conversation in the mind that is really around judgment. This is spiritual, this is not. This is a vasana, this is not. This is a sign of enlightenment, this is not. Around this whole conversation is just judgment, comparison, and a lot of misunderstanding. When we say that we would like to be equanimous, I think was the word you used, was that right? Yes.
Yeah, that's the word.
Okay, so let me explain what equanimity means in the practice of non-duality. Equanimity does not mean, first I'll explain what it does not mean. Of course, in the way of advaita, we start with negation. So what it does not mean is that I stay perfectly level and perfectly calm and perfectly unresponsive throughout all of my experiences. This is not what is meant by equanimity. What is meant by equanimity is that whatever arises, whether it is a vasana that is challenging and difficult, or it is a vasana that generates bliss. You see, both are true. A vasana is not always just negative. If you experience great joy at a particular moment related to an object, that's a vasana. It's not joy within itself. It's joy related to an object. That's a vasana. This can be much more difficult than a vasana you don't like and you want to get rid of, and you're willing to work really hard in order to let go, not be disturbed by that vasana. So when we talk about equanimity and about the expression and experience of equanimity within advaita, within the path of spiritual knowing and spiritual understanding, what we're talking about is the ability to know under all circumstances, I am not that. It's not to suppress the conditioning or the vasanas which are trying to work themselves out, but rather to realize that you are not your conditioning, not to identify. This is not to give yourself permission to be difficult or to be angry all the time. This is for you to understand that whatever is here for you to learn from it. And the way you can learn from it is to see that whether the experience is positive or negative or neutral, it is not mind. It is not happening to anyone. You are not absolved of responsibility if you create some circumstance in some relationship where you need to apologize, or you need to say, oh, woo, I wonder where that came from. I wish that hadn't happened. You take responsibility for the apparent vasana or the apparent conditioning when it arises, while knowing at the same time, I am not that. I am not that. If you do this, at some point, you'll begin to notice that conditioning or that vasana or that habit of reacting or responding in a particular way begins to settle. It begins to calm down. Eventually, when the I begins to dissolve, then you can see very clearly that whatever seems to be happening in terms of triggering or whatever like that is actually not happening to anyone. And there's no resistance. There's an opening of the heart that says, this is not me. And the only choice I really have is to recognize that this defensiveness, this upset, this judgment is not who I am. Then you can ask the question, okay, then who am I? And you can begin to use the inquiry to return over and over to the recognition of who you are as being consciousness and bliss, and pull attention away from this habit of thinking that your trigger or triggers or your behavior or your way of responding to a certain situation is valuable or is necessary or is protecting something. Look at what's happening and ask yourself, what am I protecting here? If you lose your temper with someone as an example, what are you protecting? This is what we talked about with Anil. What are you protecting? You are protecting an image of yourself as somehow threatened. And out of fear, you snap or respond in a certain situation. But you look deeply, you see there is no one here. Yes, conditioning is here. Are you your conditioning? No. This is what is to be realized. Then you can let life flow as it wants to. The waves will come and go, and eventually they become flat. Not flat in the sense of you have no emotional involvement, no affectation, but flat in the sense of identification with. So when you grieve, you grieve. When you suffer, you suffer. You know, but there is no one who's defending or protecting or preventing or resisting life as it's rising. This is the field of awareness. So use what's in the field of awareness at this moment to answer this question. Who am I? Am I this conditioning? Am I this misunderstanding? Am I this habit pattern? Or is there something else here? Okay. I hope that answered your question to some degree.
Yes, it's very good. Feels like enough.
Okay, very good. It feels like enough to me too. Okay, my friends. I think that's probably enough for today. Please consider these things. Thank you for your openness, for your love, for your compassion, for your wisdom. Thank you for sharing what is true for you, both as body, mind, world, and as the self. You are that which is aware as being consciousness and bliss.